question I want to answer in this video series is a question that comes up a lot. In fact, I've almost had people want to argue about this question. And the question is this: why should we send missionaries around the world when we have lost people across the street? I want to answer this question by looking at 4 distinctions that Paul makes in the book of Romans. The difference between people and peoples, the difference between lostness and access, the difference between evangelism and missions, and the difference between reached and unreached. We're going to just kind of take these one video at a time, and as we do, answer this question. So, all 4 of these are going to come from Romans chapter 15, but I think it's important for us to understand, why did Paul write the book of Romans? He wrote the book of Romans from the city of Corinth, which is in south central Greece. And he tells the church in Rome, he writes this letter telling them that he's leaving where he is and he's headed to Spain. He wants to take the gospel to Spain. And he says he's going to stop and visit them for a while. And if you look at a map, you see if you go from Corinth to Spain, you pretty much go right through Rome. So he's going to stop and visit the church in Rome, and he says he's going to visit them for a while and then have them assist him on his journey there. And so, question comes up, in what ways maybe was Paul looking for the church in Rome to assist him in taking the gospel to Spain? At least 2 ways I can think of for sure would be finances and prayer. So think about this. We have a missionary writing a letter to a church asking for prayer and financial support to take the gospel to people that have never heard of Jesus, right? We get letters like that still today. We call them missionary support letters. And so that's what the book of Romans is. It's a missionary support letter, Paul writing to a church, inviting them into partnership to take the gospel to people that have never heard of Jesus. And so understanding that helps us understand why Paul wrote what he wrote. Romans is basically Paul kind of laying out his missions theology. So let's look at Romans 15, starting in verse 8. It says, "For I tell you that Christ has become a servant of the Jews on behalf of God's truth to confirm the promises made to the patriarchs." So he says Jesus came to confirm the promises made to the patriarchs. Okay, well, who are the patriarchs? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And what were the promises made to those patriarchs? God said to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, "I'm going to bless you so that all nations on earth will be blessed." So Jesus came because of the promise made to the patriarchs. And the promise was made, the promise said that I'm going to bless your family as a nation to be a blessing to all nations. So think about that promise. It's both redemptive and universal. It's redemptive in that Jesus would be born through this family, and he would then draw worshipers back to himself. But it's also universal in that these worshipers would come from every tribe and language and tongue and nation. So, Jesus came to confirm the promises made to the patriarchs. And then in verse 9, so that the Gentiles, now this word Gentiles in the Greek, same word translated nations in the Great Commission in Matthew 28. It's the Greek word ethnos. It's the same word we get the word ethnic group from. So Gentiles there, and in fact, most places in the New Testament, the word Gentiles, the word nations, is this Greek word ethnos, meaning nations or people groups, peoples. So he says that Jesus came to confirm the promise, and the promise was made to the patriarchs so that the nations, that all people groups of the world would glorify God for his mercy. And then look what Paul does. He quotes from the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms. He quotes from 2 Samuel 22, and he says, "Therefore I will praise you among the Gentiles. I will sing hymns to your name. Then he quotes out of Deuteronomy 32, and he says, again it says, rejoice, O Gentiles, with his people. Then he quotes out of Psalm 117, and he says, praise the Lord, all you Gentiles, and sing praises to him, all you peoples. And then he quotes out of Isaiah 11, and he says, the root of Jesse will spring up, one who will arise to rule over the nations. The Gentiles will hope in him. So what does Paul do? He gives proof texts throughout the Old Testament saying the mission of God is to draw worshipers from all nations. And if we skip ahead to the end of the story and we look at Revelation chapter 7 and verse 9, it reads, John writing about the revelation he saw, he says, after this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, language, and people, standing before the throne and in front of the Lamb. They were wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hands, and they cried out in a loud voice, salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb. So notice it doesn't just say there was a multitude that no one could count, but it says there was a multitude from every tribe and language and people and nation. The mission of God is not just to win as many people as we can, but to win as many people as we can from every tribe and language and tongue and nation. And that's why we send missionaries around the world. So we will continue to answer this question as we work our way through Romans 15 in the next few videos. But I want to leave you with a couple of resources that if you want to dig deeper into this, the promises made to the patriarchs and the mission of God to all nations. One resource is a book by Dr. John Piper, Let the Nations Be Glad. And a second resource is Introduction to Global Missions, written by 3 different authors. So I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.